Welcome to the show. I'm Jordan Harbinger. A lot of you have asked me about my kidnap stories. I've been kidnapped not just once, but 2 times, once in Mexico and once in Serbia. Now, on this episode of the show, I'm going to explain all of that from start to finish, the nitty-gritty details. Me and Gabriel Mizrahi are going to go through pretty much everything, so it's a long one, especially because both stories are involved. Of course, I would love to have you stick with us for all of this, and if you have any questions, you know where to reach me, at Jordan Harbinger on Twitter and Instagram. Here we go. Welcome to the show. I'm Jordan Harbinger. On the Jordan Harbinger Show, we decode the stories, secrets, and skills of the world's most fascinating people. If you're new to the show, we have in-depth conversations with people at the top of their game: astronauts, entrepreneurs, spies and psychologists, even the occasional journalist kidnapped by pirates. Each episode turns our guests' wisdom into practical advice that you can use to build a deeper understanding of how the world works and become a better critical thinker. Today, we're talking, about the 2 times that I've been kidnapped while traveling abroad. I figure now's a good time to do that because nobody can really travel abroad. So I can talk about something really scary, Gabriel, and people aren't going to be like, dude, really? Too soon.
Yeah. You can talk about it without crashing American Airlines stock.
That's right. Yeah, it's already crashed. You're welcome.
Boom.
Some of the most insane experiences in my life, obviously. Some of the most valuable, in a way, especially because I lived. Probably would have sucked if I didn't, obviously. This is our 4th episode of Stereo Sundays. It's a little experiment we're doing, sponsored by the Stereo app. We might be live again next Friday or the Friday after. We're not sure yet. They've got to sort of inform us what's going on, renew the campaign, etc. But download the Stereo app in iOS or Android. Follow along with us live next time. You can also catch these episodes in the feed. Some of you are actually doing that right now. And again, you can listen to us live inside the Stereo app by grabbing it from the App Store. We'll link it in the show notes. And if you're hearing this in the podcast feed, then in Q4, we did a few of these Stereo Sundays live. Hopefully, we're going to do more in December and or in 2021, because it is a lot of fun. If you're wondering how we managed to book the guests for the show, we have a networking course that works at home. It works for your job. Networking is one of the major reasons that I run a successful business right now, and I'm teaching you those skills for free at jordanharbinger.com/course. And by the way, most of the guests on the show, they subscribe to the course, they subscribe to the newsletter, they contribute to the course, so come join us. You'll be in smart company. All right, here's our next Stereo Sunday segment on getting kidnapped twice with Gabriel Mizrahi. Now, Gabe, this is a weird topic.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It is. Yeah. My experience getting kidnapped not once, but 2 times, a few years apart, talking about what happened and what I learned from those experiences. And also, for me, I want to talk about what lessons other people can possibly use, because I think one of the reasons I'm actually still alive after this is because of a lesson I learned, I'm not even kidding, on Oprah in 1994 from a guy who's been on the Jordan Harbinger Show named Gavin de Becker. And he was Oprah's bodyguard, personal protection security specialist. And he works with Jeff Bezos and all the sort of super famous people that you know of that are protected by private security, any big time CEO, they all use Gavin de Becker's people, or people that used to be with Gavin de Becker. So he's the security guy. And he's really, really a smart, interesting guy. He wrote a book called The Gift of Fear. And I had seen him on Oprah talking about this. And one of the tips that we'll get into in a bit here was one of the things that one of the reasons I think I got out of there in one piece. And Gabe's going to be kind of doing a reverse interview on me today.
Yeah, and I actually haven't heard these stories. I heard one of these stories years ago. I haven't heard both of them told in full for a long time, so I'm excited, actually. So, Jordan, a lot of people know, if they read your bio or they've heard you on other podcasts, that you were kidnapped not once, but twice. It's kind of like a famous fact about the old JH. Mm-hmm. But most people haven't actually heard how you found yourself in that situation, how it actually went down, how you got out. So we thought we'd talk about that today. So I guess let's start. Take me back to the year 2000. You're in Mexico. Why?
So I was an exchange student in Germany in the late 90s, and I loved it. And it was this massively formative year for me. And I learned everything from negotiation to haggling to why our freedom as Americans is valuable, because I lived in the former East Germany where they were communist, like not even 10 years before I got there. And it was like a totalitarian hellhole in a lot of ways with the Stasi and secret police. And I went to college after that. And college, the first year was kind of this disappointment where it was just like high school with like jocks and bullies and stuff. And I thought, like, this is so dumb, but at least I'm getting a good education. And then it would be like, memorize the skull shapes of these Australopithecines. And I just remember thinking I learned so much more working and studying abroad than I did in that first year of college. So my second year of college, I went to Israel. And in Israel, I was like, this is going to be great. It's a different type of experience. I'm so excited about this. But the second intifada, which is like the Palestinian uprising, the second intifada started while I was there. I was in the old city of Jerusalem, and there was a riot starting because Ariel Sharon, who was the prime minister at the time, or I think, he went up to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. If you didn't know what that is, it's like a flashpoint for Arab-Israeli violence. There was a riot. Me and my Jordanian roommate, we escaped because every time we would run into like Palestinian violent sort of gang youth, he would say, "We're Arabs," in flawless Jordanian Arabic, and they'd be like, "All right, fine, get out of here." And then anytime we saw Israeli police, I would go, "We're Americans," and they would be like, "Oh, okay, fine, get out of here." So we ran. Because it was basically like, okay, if they're brown, you talk to them, and if they're white-ish, I'll talk to them, and if they're in the middle, it just depends if they're wearing a uniform and how dangerous they look. And he's like, great, So basically, we were just running out of there, and I thought, okay, it's a little dangerous. My parents were freaking out, and it didn't end in a couple of days. It arguably lasted for years and is still potentially going on.
Still going on, yeah.
So I went to Egypt. I did a bunch of backpacking in Egypt because it was cheap and it was right next door, and I saw a bunch of cool stuff. And then the semester was starting to wind down, and all of the universities that were in the United States that had sent students to Israel, they canceled their programs. So like all of my friends left. And then it was...
And so, sorry, you're studying abroad at the University of Michigan at this point?
I was studying at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and then I basically just enrolled at Hebrew University in Israel, just on my own.
On your own. Okay, got it. So you're just like, I'm going to just pursue my own course of study, and maybe I'll make my way back to Michigan at some point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And I didn't drop out of school at Michigan. I just went on like a sabbatical or whatever you call it, hiatus.
Yeah.
When you're a student, they don't even care. They just assume you're depressed or something, and you're just out. And I was like, no, I'm taking credits.
You're just enjoying a little intifada.
I'm just enjoying a little uprising. I mean, come on, don't judge, right? So once Michigan State and Michigan and all these other programs canceled their Israel programs and everybody was called home, my parents were like, look, these other universities are calling everybody home. You have to come home. And I go, Dad, it's October 27th. I can't just come home and be like, hey, I want to enroll in classes at Michigan. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, they started 2 months ago, first of all. Right. So I would just be, he's like, come home and work at a movie theater. I'm like, hell no. Work at my old job, like tearing tickets at a movie theater just made no sense at all. So I was like, nah, I'm going to go to Mexico because I knew that in Mexico there was a Spanish language program that I'd had my eye on for a while. And I thought, I can learn this now. And it's a private language school, so they're not going to care when I start. I'm going to have my own teacher. So I flew from Israel back to the United States, I think, but I can't really remember, and then flew to Mexico pretty much right after that and stayed in like a private home in Mexico. And I took Spanish lessons every morning from this teacher. And it was kind of this miserable, lonely time in a lot of ways, but Mexico is also really a trip. So I had a lot of really fun, cool experiences.
And you're in Mexico City at this point?
At that time, I went to Guadalajara first.
As you do.
As one does, yeah.
Just dip to the second state, yeah.
It was actually like a pretty chill town. Now it's one of the most dangerous cities in Mexico because there's a new cartel there called Nueva Generación, New Generation, and it's like super violent drug cartel. Sounds like a boy band. Definitely not as fun as a boy band.
Yeah.
And then I got a job at a nonprofit, and the nonprofit was in Mexico City, and they were supposed to find me a family to live in, like a host family, and they just couldn't. So I stayed on the roof, literally, where there was like a makeshift bedroom of this home that these old people owned where the daughter happened to know one of the guys that I worked with in the nonprofit. And she worked at the presidential palace. She was like, I don't know exactly what she did, but she worked in the middle of the city.
So they hook you up with a place to stay because nobody else, they couldn't line something else up for you. You're living on the roof like some B character in Narcos.
Totally B character in Narcos. Yeah, like an NPC. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and at night, what are you doing besides you're studying and you're working a little bit, but are you going out? Are you enjoying the city? Like what's the scene?
Good question. So I am going out a lot, and it's funny because I did an episode with Ed Calderon that's not out yet for the Jordan Harbinger show, and he's a cartel violence expert and a former Mexican policeman. So we talked a lot about this. So I'll keep this to the short version because you'll get a longer version during that episode. But I wouldn't say looking for trouble, but I was very keen on seeing all that cities had to offer that wasn't just like art museums and like tourist crap.
Right.
So I stayed in some gross hotels that were like $13 a night. And
those are the greatest hotels.
Yeah. But like, shared bathroom scenario, like geckos on the wall type hotels. Although maybe in Mexico City, not so many geckos. And I went to markets that were kind of like the cops didn't go in there. And if they did, it was to buy illicit substances, not to enforce any laws. So I would go to Mexico. It's called El Tepito, and it's like this ancient market that's in the middle of Mexico City. But it was probably there before Mexico City was. And it's like this defensible area. And there they sell everything from counterfeit Chinese handbags to there's prostitution there. You can buy weapons there. You can buy pharmaceuticals there of all kinds. You can buy those Santa Muerte statuettes and stuff there. You can even go do like, literally, you can do like blood sacrifices there for creepy sort of like drug cartel saints and stuff.
Yeah, sort of like Santeria stuff. And
Santa Muerte, yeah.
So you're kind of, so it's like IRL Silk Road.
Yeah, it's like exactly. It's like an in real life version of the Silk Road. Like you can go there and it's not like, hey man, you want some weed? It's like you're just seeing it out on tables.
Right. It's just out and about. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is sort of like, these are the places you would frequent.
Right. I would frequent them. You wanted to know
what it was really. Yeah. You wanted to know the real Mexico. You didn't want to stay at like the Four Seasons.
It was funnily enough, one of the places where everyone said, don't go there by yourself. And I was like, I'm going there tomorrow. And I went there like every day to explore. And what was funny was it probably was ridiculously dangerous for me to do that. On the other hand, I think people thought that I was either a narco or a cop or some kind of crazy person because I was a white guy who at the time, I was working out like twice a day. I didn't have much else to do but eat carne asada and work out twice a day. So I would go there and hang out. And I think people were kind of like, ugh, this guy's probably trouble.
Right.
Because he's alone in El Tepito and he's like this jacked young white dude who is either crazy and doesn't know he should be here or knows something that I don't and nobody should mess with this guy.
Right.
And my Spanish was getting better and better. And, you don't talk much when you're at markets. So there were a couple of women that were like, wait, where are you from? And I'm like, United States. And they'd be like, oh my God, I just thought you were a Mexican with light eyes. And because, you get a tan after a while and you say a few words in Spanish that are more or less how you're supposed to speak, and people think you're Mexican suddenly, especially when you're in the hood,
right?
Where no tourists ever go because they either don't know about it or every guidebook says don't set foot in this place unless you want to get your wallet slashed or something like that, or your face.
So I'm guessing we're working our way toward the kidnapping.
Funnily enough, nothing ever happened to me in El Tepito. Totally fine and uneventful.
That's the point of this subplot. Okay, got it. You're like, I put myself in danger. Nothing happened. I went to go get like some green smoothie from Whole Foods. That's where
100%. Yeah. Minus the Whole Foods part, you're pretty damn close. Yeah. So I'm staying on the roof of these people's house, and there's these buses, like school buses, and I forget what they're called. Somebody will tell us in the chat probably. But whenever you go to Mexico, and in fact, whenever you go anywhere in South America, there are these little buses that are basically decommissioned school buses that are now private city buses. So they're not city buses as in they're owned by the city, but they're city buses as in they drive to neighborhoods that are not served by the city. So like favela, barrio type neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And pretty much any neighborhood that's just not close enough to like a legit bus stop. And what's funny is they're always airbrushed really well. And that's how you know which bus it is. It's not like, hey, this is Route 27. They have that too, but they also, it's like, oh, I like the one that has the giant mural of Mariah Carey on the side that says Mariah in hot pink spray paint, right? So I'm always taking these same buses, and they stop around, 9 p.m. or something. So one day, my friend, who's German guy, he goes, let's go to this bar. It's downtown in the center of Mexico City. I'm like, great. I go outside and there's no buses running, and I'm in like Banana Republic chinos and a nice light blue dress shirt, and I get into a taxi. And the taxi is a green Volkswagen Beetle, just like all Mexico City taxis are these green Volkswagen Beetles. And I get in the car and I go, oh, excuse me, I don't have cash. I need you to take me to an ATM close to our destination. And he goes, no problem, because I just didn't have any cash with me at the time, which is interesting because I probably wouldn't. I think I had like just enough like to pay for the school bus version of getting there, but not enough for the taxi version, which is probably 3-4 times the price. And so he goes, no problem. Mexico City, now, it's shaped like a bowl. And in the middle, there's statues in the presidential palace where the woman whose family I lived with was working. So I knew that area quite well. That's near where El Tepito, all these like main areas of the city are. And on the outside of the bowl, the higher elevation areas are the areas where I live, where there's neighborhoods. And then above us and on the outside of the bowl is like less and less and less developed and more and more kind of sketchy, further away from the center of town. And there's a lot of pollution up there too, because the air quality is so bad. You're kind of like in the smog layer. So I noticed we're driving up instead of down. And I go, hey man, I'm going down there. What's taking so long? And I thought like maybe there's traffic, but there wasn't really. And then he drops the first red flag and he goes, there's there's traffic or there's an accident. And I was like, how do you know? This is before cell phones. It's the year 2000.
Yeah.
And then he goes, well, let me just get directions. And that was like a major hit you in the face red flag, because if you are a cab driver in Washington, D.C., and someone says, take me to the White House, you don't go, hang on, let me ask for directions. If you're in New York and someone says Times Square, you don't say, oh man, I need to get some directions.
Yeah.
If you've been there for a day and a half, you know how to get there. So if you're a cab driver and you know the city like the back of your hand, you shouldn't need directions for anywhere, let alone one of the most popular areas in the entire country of Mexico.
Not a good sign.
So not a good sign. And, we're lucky that we didn't have cell phones, because if I'd had Instagram, I probably would have just been like, whatever, and scrolling and then been like, where the hell are we? But I was looking out the window the whole time, and I thought, we're just not going in the same direction. I've been here for a couple months at this point already. I know where we're going and where we're supposed to be, and this is not it. And he's being more and more strange. Like suddenly he doesn't understand my Spanish questions, and he's turning the radio up. And I'm like, can you turn that off? Like, I'm trying to talk to you now. And he's like, oh, relax, senor. I'm like, I'm kind of not relaxed. And also you seem to notice that I'm not relaxed. What's the deal? And so just a bunch of little things like that started to freak me out. And then he stops in front of this. Actually, before that, I tell him, look, just take me back, drop me off here. He's like, no. I'm like, I'll pay you. He's like, I thought you didn't have any money. I'm like, dang, you got me there, I'm like, take me back.
With this guy.
Take me back. I've got cash in my place. He's like, no, we're almost there. And I know that that's not true, because now we can't even like barely see the city lights at all. So I'm like, this is bad. We're in like a favela area now. This is like a slum kind of area. This is not good.
Not good.
And he's like, we're almost there. So I realize now that he's up to something. And we stop in front of this like cinder block house. And people are going to go, why didn't you jump out and run? I couldn't get out of the car. I thought about stopping at a red light and just like bolting. But the lock, this is the ultimate red flag. The locks in the back seat were broken. And I don't mean like physically broken, like I tried the door and they didn't work. I mean, on old cars where the lock would pop up near the window and then it would go down into that little hole. This car had the locks put up and then cut as low as they could, and then so that when the car was locked, you couldn't reach the lock to pull the lock up.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah. And I was like, okay,
that's in this car.
And I thought like maybe they're broken, because you'd see old cars like that a lot with like broken locks. You'd see that. But the fact that these were both broken on that side was a little weird. And
Hmm.
also that they were both broken in the same way made me think
Right.
it was kind of deliberate.
Right.
And I was like, uh-oh, I'm in like a kidnap taxi.
So that's the moment when you're like, there's definitely something off at this point. Like, I am not in a good situation. I am in trouble.
Right. And this is before everyone knew that there was like this racket to go and grab foreigners and take them to like 5 ATMs at knife point or gunpoint and then leave them on the street after withdrawing the maximum daily amount, of
Hmm.
money. And I'm hoping that that's what this was, but, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So he stops and I said, sir, just keep going. Don't stop here. And because I knew, again, no cell phones, right? So I knew that if he gets out here and I'm stuck in the car, this is where he goes and gets like 3 huge guys from
Hmm.
this shanty town and they both get in the back of this cab or like, who knows, right? This is the secondary location. And that's one of the tips that we'll talk about in a minute. This is bad. So I slide from behind the passenger seat. I slide behind the driver's seat and I go, sir, please don't get out. Just keep going. I don't feel safe here. And I put my arm between him and the door because I figure I can stop him from getting out. And then, that's all I've got right now. Ideally, we would never have even gotten to this place, but it's too late for that. So I decide, all right, I'm going to block his exit from the car if he tries to make a fast move. He didn't notice that my arm was between him and the door. He had no idea. So he's like, sir, calm down. I'm like, drive, just keep driving. And he's like, calm down, relax. I'm going to just go in and grab my friend and get directions. And I was like, okay, so you do know somebody that lives here. That's even worse. You're not stopping to look at a map. You're telling me you're planning to get out of the car.
Right.
So I go, no, keep driving anywhere but here. I don't like it. I don't feel safe. And at that point, he makes a fast one to try and open the door, but I have my hand kind of between his seat and the door. So I'm ready to slide my arm forward. And again, I'm 20 years old at this point. I'm 40 now, so this is a while ago. 20 years old at this point. I work out twice a day and all I eat are, carne asada tacos and drink protein shakes. So I'm like 209 pounds of lean, angry teenager, or just almost, used to be a teenager last year. And he's like 50 something, sits in a cab all day eating fast food. He's a slob and he's not strong. And I'm not even half his age, and very strong. So he tries to get out and he can't. And I throw him right back into the seat with one arm and I reach around the seat with my other arm, but over the console area between the passenger seat and the driver's seat with my other arm. And I put him in a choke that is nasty. Like I had my wrist bone of my left hand over the bridge of his nose and I had my entire forearm over his mouth so he couldn't breathe.
Wow.
And I slipped my right hand, which was over his mouth, down over his neck, and I put him in a sleeper and I put him to sleep. And with a car seat between me. And if you've ever put anybody in a sleeper hold, it's pretty tough to do, and it requires a little bit of muscle to do right, especially if the other person's struggling. To do it with a freaking car seat in between you, you have to squeeze extremely hard because
I
otherwise
was about to say,
Yeah.
you had to be in crazy good shape to pull that off.
I was
like-
extremely strong. And this
Wow.
guy, I put adrenaline, I was
Yeah.
in panic mode. So I put
yeah, you had crazy muscles.
I had crazy strength. I had berserker mode right on.
Right.
And so I squeezed him so hard that he stopped moving, which is what happens in a sleeper hold. And I sort of let him go there. I had to crawl between the two seats, which is not easy, open his door, push him out of the car. And then I tried to drive the car and I couldn't. It was a stick shift, but not only that, it was a stick shift from 1968 or something like that. So I'm trying to drive and there's a clutch and there's a trick to the clutch and I'm massively shaking from adrenaline and freaked
Sure,
out
yeah,
and looking
yeah.
for other people who might have seen what happened,
Right.
and luckily he didn't scream or get the horn. I mean, I put him out probably
And there's
within a few seconds.
there's nobody around in this area that you're
No.
standing in, right?
No,
Okay.
and it's dark out. It's like 9
Right.
p.m.
right.
So, or 9:30 or something at this point. So no one saw it. Thank God. So I take the keys out of the car. I threw the keys. I should have kept the keys, but it doesn't end up mattering. And the reason I should have kept the keys is because I didn't want him to chase me in the car. So I threw the keys thinking, first I tried to drive away in the car. Couldn't. Then I threw the keys thinking I don't want him to just get back in the car if he wakes up in 10 seconds and come and chase me and find me, with three other guys.
Yeah, smart.
But I should have kept the keys because, what if he found the freaking keys? I don't know. So anyway, I threw the keys and I ran back the way we came, but I was miles and miles away from where we really had come from. So I finally get to like some semblance of a main road. I think they call it like Periferico or something. I could be getting confused. I think it's
that's right.
Ring road.
That's the big ring road, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It may have been that, or I may have just seen a sign for that and then thought it was that. Because again, weird memory stuff 20 years later. Go ahead.
But you got to a main road, that's the point. And so there's like traffic and people around.
Yeah, there were no people, but there was traffic and nobody would stop for me. And at this point, realized I had my hair like bleach blonde or something because I was, 20. I was wearing a Banana Republic blue button-down shirt. I remember it really clearly. I was soaked through with sweat because I'd been running and freaking out. And it was hot. It's 1968 VW taxi. There's probably no air conditioning in it. Right. And I'm wearing like dry clean only cream colored chinos, or off-white chinos that I assume are soaked. And I'm in the middle of the hood, or at least damn close to it. So no one's like, let me stop and talk to that guy. They were like, what is this methed out gringo doing here? What the hell?
I'm starting to understand why you didn't get jumped in that market earlier.
I think so. I think I just looked like a crazy person, and so finally someone stops and they're like, what's wrong? Because it was so obvious that I was panicking and freaking out and like jumping up and down and waving my arms. Right. And it was an older guy and a younger woman who I thought was his daughter. In 2020 hindsight, probably his girlfriend, because that's kind of how ththis things roll sometimes in Mexico. And I vaguely remember the guy was a doctor because he was like, are you hurt? And I was like, no. This guy tried to kidnap me, and he goes, what? And I was like, look, I'll ride in the trunk. Just get me out of here. And he was like, okay. And the girl said something like, we can't just leave him here. Because he was like, hell no, I'm not putting this guy in my car. I was like, I'll ride in the trunk.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this guy's about to kidnap me. I'm not
right. He didn't know what was going on. It was just too weird. But the fact that I was yelling in English and like terrible Spanish, he just knew that it just didn't add up. It was just weird.
Right.
So I said, look, I'll ride in the trunk. I think that was enough for him. He's like, get in the back seat of the car. And he just starts driving. And he's like, where do you want me to take you? I was like, police station. And he goes, okay. How long have you been in Mexico? I was like 4 months or something. And he goes, let me tell you something. Never go to the police if you have a problem like this. In fact, don't ever go to the police. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no one's told you this in the few months that you've been here? I was like, no, I've never had any problems. He goes, there's a very good chance that if you were kidnapped, because I kind of gave him a rundown, that if you were kidnapped, either the police were in on it and they are fully aware that this gang operates here, or, they could just decide that this is a different kind of problem. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, where's the cab driver? And I was like, oh, I told you I had a scuffle with him. And he goes, where is he? Why didn't he chase you? And I was like, oh, he's unconscious. And he's like, are you sure he's only unconscious? And I was like, I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Oh,
story.
Damn. That's intense.
Yeah, because he's like, look, what could happen is I could take you to the police. They might be in on this. They might take you back to that gang and be like, give me $50, right?
Right.
Or maybe they go and they look and that cab driver is still laying in the road where you murdered him in self-defense, and now you have to prove that to a bunch of corrupt cops.
With broken Spanish as a gringo in the middle of a foreign country that you're just visiting where you don't know the people or the rules. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like panic mode, and I'm like, holy shit, right? I don't want to deal with this. So he goes, I'll tell you what, I'll drop you off at a subway station. I don't want to know where you live. Mm-hmm. I'm going to drop you off at a subway station, and you
mean,
should
like, to
leave.
Get a sandwich? Or
yeah. I would just talk to the sandwich artists. Those people are very good at advising in these types of high pressure situations.
What you need in a situation like this, you need a 6 foot long.
I need a $5 foot long.
Exactly.
So he dropped me off at a metro station, and I take that and I go home, and I'm like covered in sweat. I shower up and everything. I tell my German friend, hey, I can't make it. Sorry, I emailed him. I couldn't call him. We didn't have cell phones, I emailed him like, hey, I know you're probably standing around alone for hours and really pissed, but here's what, I got in some trouble and I'm moving. And he's like, what? And I tell the woman via note that I live with, or this old people and the woman that I live with, that I'm going to move and that it's not them and that I ran into some trouble and I'm really sorry and, blah, blah, blah. And I basically like straight up went to the bus station like immediately and found a late overnight bus that went to Guadalajara, and I just bounced. and I moved.
Just like that.
I moved. Oh, instantly I moved. Because I thought, like, dude, because again, people were telling me, organized crime, what if they know who you are? What if you drop something in the cab that identifies you? What if you told the guy where you work? Like, you know, what if they just see you in this neighborhood where they picked you up and they're like, here's the guy that murdered my uncle last weekend, right? Who knows?
Right.
So I was like, I'm out. So I moved immediately to Guadalajara from Mexico City.
Damn.
Back to Guadalajara, I should say.
That is terrifying, but it sounds like it ended up okay.
Yeah.
You obviously never heard about this guy after the fact, so you don't really know what happened, but you made it out okay.
Right. I don't really know what happened. And I didn't go to Mexico for a really, really long time after that. And when I did, I ended up calling some people that knew some people that knew some people. And I was like, can you run me through the national crime database of Mexico, if there is one, and find out if there's like an outstanding warrant for me?
Right.
And they were like, sure, okay, nothing, great. You know, it was just one of those situations. Because I was like, hey, I don't want them to be like having looked for me for 5 years.
Totally. You don't want to show up at the airport in DF and they pull you to the side and say like,
are you this guy? Were you here in 2001? Cool. You're under arrest for the murder of this, cab driver.
And by the way, good job on getting rid of those blonde tips. This is a much better look for you, but
yeah. Oh, I didn't recognize you because you don't have a douchebag haircut.
Exactly. So looking back on that experience all these years later, 20 years later, right? What did you take away from that briefly? And I know we have to get to another story, which is, I suspect, even wilder than the one you just told us.
Yeah.
But looking back, like if there were like a couple of things, what did you take away?
So the first thing is the lesson that I learned from Oprah / Gavin de Becker, which I talk about in his episodes on the show, Gavin de Becker. We'll link to those in the show notes as well. The first thing is never go to the secondary location. That's the prime lesson. If you are getting kidnapped or abducted or taken someplace against your will, you fight right then and there. I don't care if they have a gun and you're in a parking lot and they're telling you to get in the car. You fight right then and there if they're trying to take you hostage. The reason is that's where they have the least amount of control and the least amount of privacy. So it might seem like you're in trouble because you're in a dark parking lot at a Target, with very few people in it, and you're getting told to get into the car. That's the best place because once you're in the car, there's no one else. You're moving fast. It's easy for them to conceal you. It's easier for them to conceal their firearms or their knives. If they get you to the secondary location, that's the proverbial place where nobody can hear you scream, right? That's the safe house where I assume I was outside of in Mexico City. Like that's the place where in the basement they've got a soundproofing basement. There's no neighbors. They've got chains cemented to the walls, or a place to dispose of your body or totally. Whatever it is, right? Yeah. Or if you're lucky, it's where reinforcements are that take you to a bunch of ATMs and you're basically unscathed after they rob you. But I don't know. Like to this day, was I going to get robbed and taken to 3 ATMs and withdraw $600 and left in the middle of nowhere? Or was I going to get chopped up slowly into little pieces? I don't know. Right.
Yeah, and you don't want to stick around and find out. So
you don't
never go to the secondary location. Okay.
And the other lesson is a lot of what we have this map in our brain, and I don't know exactly what this is called, but it's like there's a fallacy for this, Gabriel, where when you experience something that is outside your normal, not your comfort zone, but your normal level of experience, you often don't know how to identify it. And what I mean is when I was in the car, if I'm really honest with myself, I knew that I was probably getting kidnapped like 10 to 15 minutes before I did anything significant to stop the actions. And then I dilly-dallied and talked myself out of it and sat on the fence for a while until it was just so obvious that this guy had taken me somewhere and was trying to get out of the car to get help. Mm-hmm. So you have to be really careful because your brain will say, and this is what I remember this conversation. Again, it's sort of like the magic of memory. So I'm not sure this happened in the moment, but my 2020 hindsight says that it did. I remember very distinctly now having this conversation in my head that went something like, hey, I've never been kidnapped before, so why would that be happening now? And then my other part of my brain went, that makes no sense. So
Right.
just because you've never gotten kidnapped before doesn't mean you can't get kidnapped now. When you were a virgin, you hadn't slept with a woman before, and now you have. Like, what do you mean? That's what experience is. That's
Right.
what life experience is. And then I go, well, I don't really know. Nobody's really talked about this. And then it was like, well, maybe people who've been through this situation and didn't get away are dead. And that's
Oh,
why you
man.
haven't heard about it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's a small audience that you can learn that from. Yeah.
Right. Like there's survivor bias, and it's called survivor bias because of literally situations like this where you only hear from people that survive, right? Where they go, oh, it's fine. Just go to the ATM with them and they'll let you go. No sense getting cut. And now it's like, okay, everybody else who got cut into little pieces slowly and tortured to death for Santa Muerte blood sacrifices is dead and doesn't come out the other side to tell you. So it's survivor bias. And I remember having these conversations in my head, not in so many words, not using like cognitive bias and things like that, but I just remember having this like, one voice and then the other voice and going, well, maybe that's not true. Am I just doing that because I don't want to accuse this guy of something? Yeah, I kind of am. Well, if I escape, how am I going to do it? Maybe you don't need to escape. You're overreacting. Okay, but what if I'm not overreacting? I should have a plan. That whole thing was going through my head. And I'm not saying you should live in fear and always have an escape plan. But what I am saying is, when you're in an unfamiliar situation and you start to get heebie-jeebies, listen to those heebie-jeebies, put your freaking phone away, which is what most people will do. They'll start scrolling on Instagram to distract themselves. Or they start looking at their email to distract themselves. I didn't have that luxury because there were no mobile phones. So I was alone with my thoughts, and my thoughts were getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it would have been really easy for me to just bust out my phone, bust out GPS, or like call my friend and chat on the way. I would have done something like that instead. And I think the reason I'm alive, or the reason I had nothing happen to me, is because I did not do that. And so you really do need to listen to your gut when it comes to these sorts of things. Now, your intuition might be wrong, and you might go, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so quick to judge people who have face tattoos. Maybe he's just a guy who's turning his life around or something like that. But why be wrong for the sake of being woke? Or why be wrong for the sake of making yourself feel comfortable for an extra 15 minutes on your taxi ride? If you're getting a weird feeling, do something about it. And if you're wrong, and who cares? So those were a couple of big lessons for me as well.
Got it. Wow. If I'm just glad I heard this, because if I ever find that myself in that situation, you better believe I'm going to be thinking like, pay attention to that voice. Like, don't discount that. Don't look at Instagram. You can check your meme accounts later. Like, time to pay attention to what's happening right in front of you. Because I don't know if I hadn't heard a story like that, I don't know if I would be able to trust that voice as much as I would now. So
exactly.
That's a really good insight. Okay. We said that there were 2 kidnapping stories at the top of this episode. Take me to Serbia in 2004. What was going on? Why were you there?
Yeah. I think I actually may have a couple of, now that I'm thinking about it, a couple more maybe mini lessons from Mexico, if I can, before we jump into Serbia.
Absolutely. Of course.
A lot of times what I was thinking when I was in the car was, this probably isn't happening. And I sort of touched on that, right? It's wishful thinking. Just don't roll the dice. Make waves. Your impulse is going to be like, just be cool, just be chill. That's actually how you die. Yes, you should be calm so you can think clearly. But there's a lot of social pressure that goes into this. And I remember the guy saying things like, relax, what do you think I'm going to do to you? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then I was like, wait, that's what manipulative people say.
Yeah. Why am I taking this guy's word for it? He's the one who's going to do it.
Yeah, you're the one that's going to do it. What do you mean? What are you going to do to me? And that's the thing is like, he's like, I'm an old man. What could I do? And I'm like, yeah, you're probably the perfect guy to kidnap people because you're like an older guy with gray hair. Right. Of course. And he wasn't that old. He just happened to have gray hair. I mean, if it was somebody who was not in great shape or was sort of like talking themselves out of it, yeah, I would have ended up sitting in the car. You can really, there's a lot of people that say like, oh, be as calm as possible. Yes, you should be calm, but you should be, you should try and not panic. That's all that means. You should actually be worked up. You should allow the adrenaline to wash over you. You should be using that. The reason we have fight or flight when we are engaging in physical conflict is because that's how you get berserker mode. That's how you get that super strong strength to go and like outrun or run. Because who knows how far I ran? I could have run like 1.5 miles, right? In like 10 minutes or whatever it was running back. The struggle, yes, I was stronger than him, but I was in absolute survival mode. And I basically crushed his windpipe with my arm, right? And his nose. You need to channel your aggression and your excitement into getting out of the situation. Don't calm yourself down so far that you don't take action. All staying calm means is don't panic and start running around in circles and be like, oh my God, my mom, what am I going to tell my mom? Like that's freaking out. Don't freak out, but you shouldn't be like, oh, chill, relax. Nothing's happening. That's not true.
Right. There's productive fear and unproductive fear.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, come up with a plan, right? Like I was thinking, how am I going to stop him from getting out of the car? How am I going to attack this guy if I need to? And how do I avoid a knife? Because I thought, okay, I was looking in the front and I thought like, okay, there's no gun or knife laying around, but I don't know what's in the glove box or if there is a glove box or something else hidden under the seat. So when I choked him, I purposely pulled him upwards and back so that he couldn't reach under his seat and he couldn't reach for the glove box. And yes, I thought about that in the moment because I thought the thing that can stop me from putting him to sleep is if he has a weapon that's close at hand that I cannot see. And if he has a weapon that's close at hand that I cannot see, it's probably not in his front pocket, like his shirt pocket. It's going to be in his pants pockets, under the seat, in the glove box, something like that. If I can pull him up and back and put him to sleep before he can get there, then he can't stop me. So I planned all of that in my head before I went for it.
Got it. Yeah, you're considering all the angles before you just act, right? And you channeling the productive fear into considering all those angles rather than just like stewing in your own panic.
Exactly. And whenever I tell the story, people are like, oh, did you really plan all that? Yes, I did. And I think that the reason I did that was because at the time I was doing karate and self-defense and stuff like that. And I'd worked at a security company, but none of that is like ninja moves, right? A sleeper hold is really basic. An X choke or whatever it was called is really basic over the bridge of his nose. And it's like, it hurts. So he can't see, starts tearing up. I wanted that to happen, and I wanted him to start flailing and grabbing at my arm and not reaching down.
Right.
And I knew that if I did it fast with like explosive violence, that he would then not be able to counteract that. So that was the plan. It wasn't like step left and then chop right and then karate chop the trachea. Like none of that stuff is realistic. But having a plan to just be extremely violent for in an explosive way without any warning. Because I didn't say, if you get out, I'm going to choke you. I just put my arm there. And when he made the fast move for it, I immediately I turned it up to 11. I didn't ramp it up and say, hey, what are you doing, mister? I just immediately was like, okay, if he goes for the door, that is me going all the way up to 11. And if he dies, he dies. I wasn't thinking that at the time, but after I left him unconscious, or I think unconscious, I didn't think like, oh, I better make sure he's okay. I was just like, if in that sort of life or death struggle, I'm not thinking like, I'm just going to put enough pressure on him to put him to sleep like you would at a karate class. This was crush the windpipe and dump the body out of the car,
So this was like, this story in Mexico was like kidnapping training wheels for like this was the dress rehearsal for the full performance that ended up happening 4 years later. Yeah.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay. So talk to us about that.
All right. So in Serbia, I was working as an English teacher initially. And then later on, I decided to go back there with a fellowship from the U.S. government. The Department of Defense sponsors it. It's not anything that necessarily has to do with espionage or defense, but they pay for it. And that was the lap of luxury, man, because they gave me a great budget. And they let me live there for several months. I was there for 14 months total or something like that. And they let me live there, paid for everything. It was such a really awesome deal. Wow. And I was back then in Serbia, which, by the way, before I tell this story, I want to say I love Mexico. And I think it's a great place and has great people and great food and great culture. Serbia, same thing. I've got great friends there. I love the place. The Balkans are fascinating. It's a beautiful country. I want to say that because I've told this story before in pieces, and then Serbian people will send me email like, hey, man, we don't need you to kick us while we're down, or like you bomb us and now you're telling us that this and that. I love Serbia. This is a bad thing that happened to me in a country that could have happened in many different countries. I don't think it would ever happen in the United States, obviously, but I could be wrong there. But I'm sure people get kidnapped in taxis in the U.S. too. It's just a very common thing in Mexico, especially Mexico City. And in Serbia, at the time, 2004, they had some police officers that were pretty crappy and corrupt. And that's a legacy of socialism and communism and of the Civil War that they had there. Because, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But anyways, so in Serbia at the time, I don't know if it's still like this. If you're foreign and you're traveling on a foreign passport that's not Serbian, every time you leave the country and you come back, you have to re-register with the police. And what that means is you go to the police station, you fill out a form, you tell them where you were, you tell them when you're coming in, or that you came in, and how long you're staying, and the address where you're staying, and who you're staying with. If you stay at a hotel, the hotel does this for you. But if you are staying with private citizens, this will show you, this is sort of a peek inside a not so free country. Now they're more or less free, right? But of course, back in the days of communism, they were far from it. Better than most communist countries, but far from it. You had to tell people where you were living because the police want to know where every foreigner is in the country at any given time, which is crazy to me. And at least where they can be found at night. So I would have to go in, and it was this huge pain, and it took forever, and they were rude, and the cops were dicks, and they didn't know how to do it, and they'd make us come back, and then they would say, you're too late, you got to do it within 24 hours, and they'd try and get money from me. So I just got really sick of it. The final straw for me was I came back from like Austria or something like that. I'd spent like a couple of days there visiting a friend, and when I came back, they'd said, hey, man, you have to wait over here and like, don't talk to me, I'm busy. And they were just kind of jerks. And then they did a shift change at the police station. And the new guy who had come in said, okay, everyone's getting locked up. And I was like, no, I'm just here to register. And he's like, I don't care. If you're sitting here at 11 p.m., you probably did something, because he thought I got brought in there by the cops. So he's like, I'm locking you up overnight. And I was like, dude, what? So he locked me up overnight, but he locked me up with a bunch of prostitutes and a pimp. They were fine, but they were chain smoking and they were talking loudly in Roma language all night long, smoking like unfiltered cigarettes constantly. And I was like, this is total BS, man. Like, I didn't do anything, and now I'm like getting lung cancer and staying awake all night.
Right.
And I can't even talk to these people and commiserate. It's like such bullshit. So I was like, I've had it with this bullshit bureaucracy, and look, I'm not expecting everything to be America, but like this is totally unfair.
Yeah, you just threw me in a cell for no reason, just because it was not the right time of day for you. That's not cool.
He was just in a bad mood and didn't want to fill out the form, and like didn't want to call anyone.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
Following the laws, they told you to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had work the next day. I was so pissed. So
I love that you're there on this like fancy fellowship, and then you're getting thrown in jail just for like showing up and registering when they asked you to.
Right, exactly. And there, like, I'd had other issues where I had like an immigration violation, and they were like, oh, your visa's expired. So they would treat us like crap. I remember cops like shoving me down. And then when I finally saw the judge, he was like, oh, I'm sorry, you're a student. I hate doing this, but I have to fine you 50 euros. Please go get a proper visa. I'm like, oh, it's okay. I understand. And he's like, was everything okay? I was like, no, the cops like shoved me down and tapped me in the frickin' leg with a nightstick. And he's like, what? So I had to call the embassy. I mean, there's all kinds of issues there. When the government has too much authority over people, and they hire the biggest dumbasses in the world to become in Serbia, getting a job in the regular police is one of the worst jobs you can get.
Oh wow.
So
there's a lot.
If you are a bad student in school, you get sent to the police high school. And the police high school is where all the dumbass kids go who don't try.
God.
Imagine that's your governmental authority.
Yeah, those are the people you have to answer to. That's a recipe for disaster.
So you get bullies that are dumb as hell and now have authority that is essentially unquestioned by people. And are bitter. And are super bitter. And hate Americans because, we bombed them in the 90s. So it was not a good situation for me to be dealing with all the time. Okay. Anyway, I went to the embassy, got an appointment. By the way, if you're ever abroad, especially in a developing country, go ahead and make friends at the embassy, the U.S. embassy, or your country's embassy, because they hire locals, and those locals are extremely well connected. So I called the embassy, and they were like, hold on. And then I talked to this Serbian gal who was probably like 30, working there as an administrator, and she straight up called the chief of police, and I got a meeting with them, and she came with me to the meeting, and he's like, if you ever have any problem, call the number on this card. It's my phone number. It's my cell phone.
That's nice. That's a huge asset.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I had problems at Borders before, and I was like, can you call this guy? He's a friend of mine. And they'd be like, no need. No need, sir. Go ahead. Bye.
Just
Because
good.
they
Yeah.
were just like, do I want to get my ass chewed out by this super high level guy to
Right.
try and get $10 out of this guy? Like, no thanks.
Right.
Or
Right.
to like throw my weight around after a beer? No thanks. So anyway, I was registered and doing that, and I got sick of doing that. I stopped registering the next time I came back, and I was like, screw these guys. What are they going to do? They're so disorganized. Well, they started showing up after a few months to the houses where I was supposed to be registered and had not re-registered because they knew I came back in the country, but they were like, oh, you're kind of like a ghost now. You're an unregistered foreign agent inside the country. You're not at the house where you said you were last time. And then I said, oh, I told my friend, just tell him I'm over here at another friend's house. So the police went there. And then she said, oh, he's not here right now. She called me right away after that. And then they came back again. He goes, she's not here. He's not here right now. And they go, where's his stuff? And she goes, he doesn't really have any stuff here. And the cops were like, if he's not back here tomorrow at this time for us to talk to him or registered with the police, you're in trouble. And so my friend Yelena called me and goes, you have to move now. And I wasn't really living with her, but she's like, go register with the cops. I was like, okay. So I go and I finally re-register, but they're like, yeah, this doesn't work. You can't just skip it. You're in trouble. I'm going to come visit you. And I was like, fine. So I just put down a different address and I moved again because I was like, I'm not going to let these cops find me. And the guys that I was living with, they said, if the cops come here, we're just not going to cooperate with them because they had gang affiliations and they were like, these cops aren't going to mess with us.
Wow.
So I said, okay, great. So I basically was under protection from these kind of gangster guys that I had stayed with there. I was renting a room from their parents, and they lived there in that neighborhood. And it was crazy. They had these Zastava pistols and stuff. So we would go shoot these Yugoslav pistols. And I was like, crazy, you guys can just have guns here. And they were like, yeah, we can't just have guns here. And I was like, oh, yeah, right, in a gang and all that. Like, got it. Forgot. Yes, forgot you guys are in a gang.
You're in better hands with these guys than you were with the cop in the station.
What's funny about this, and I tell this to people all the time, in many developing world countries, so look, in the United States, the police protect us from gangs. In developing world countries, especially Slavic countries, Eastern Europe, where there's a lot of mafia, you need the mafia to protect you from the government. Criminals protect people from the government in many cases in those countries. They also victimize people. But in my case in Serbia, I needed criminals to protect me from the government because the government was the people that were messing with me constantly.
Right, right. And there are spots in Mexico where the same thing is true.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Why do you think the drug cartels are so popular among people? They aren't universally because they kill so many people. But if you look at Pablo Escobar, I know it's Colombia, but kind of the same deal here. He had a base of support in Medellin, right? Because he developed it and paid a lot and wouldn't let the police abuse the people in the town, made sure that they were taken care of instead of just abused and taken advantage of all the time. So in this case, I had the same thing. I was being protected in many ways by this gang, and who was just like some dudes that I hung out with, and again were like my family back then. Well, I went to this concert, which is called Exit. It's a music festival, and it's awesome. It's on an island that is an old Turkish fortress from the Ottoman Empire, I believe, and it's something else, man. There's a huge open air fortress. So there's like 20 stages, and you can see everyone from all your favorite DJs to like the White Stripes are playing there. And it's 4 days long, and it gets like 140,000 people or something like that going to this festival called Exit. I hope they still have it because it's one of the coolest experiences, man. It's really, really something.
That sounds dope. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the days we were leaving, probably the last day, although now I can't really remember exactly what, I guess it must have been the last day. We see this black Jeep driving on the island. Now, there's no cars allowed on the island itself. And that's a very sort of red flag. Also, this is one of these Jeeps, I can't remember, I think they're Mitsubishi Jeeps. And those are government vehicles a lot of the time. Normal people can buy them, but there's often government vehicles. And this Jeep had government plates. And I thought, oh, it's some dipshit government guy throwing his weight around, because that's whenever you see anybody sort of driving recklessly in one of those things, it's always cops. It's always like their version of the FBI. It used to be called state security, like Državni bezbednost is how we would pronounce that. Državni bezbednost or something like that. And it's those guys or the whatever organization sort of came after those guys. And they're not nice, and they're kind of like FBI meets CIA, but also meets kind of like Stasi. So they spend much more time terrorizing their own people than they do foreigners. So they were just bugging people, trying to get bribes from people, trying to hit people with their car, quote unquote, gently to like mess with them, chasing girls around, throwing bottles out of their car. I mean, you can imagine what kind of great people, upstanding citizens these guys are, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it's like 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning. So I'm going to meet my friend for coffee, and we're walking, and we see these guys, and we were with a bunch of girls, and these girls are cute. And so the Jeep comes over to us and is trying to like drive over my buddy, literally like knock him into the mud with a Jeep, a car. Dangerous, right?
Wow.
And
real public servants, these guys.
Real public servants, yeah. And so finally, I told the girls to go left, and I just smacked the car top with my hand and ran to the right because I knew that would get their attention. And then I thought, okay, I'm either going to talk my way out of this or just bail on these guys, and they're not going to be able to find me, and it won't matter. So I ran with my buddy. I wasn't just me. So I was also a little nervous because I knew there were cops, and I was like, what if they like ID all of us and they find out that I'm unregistered? It's going to be such a mess.
Oh, that's right. You're unregistered at this point. Still.
I'm unregistered.
Like you're still doing that dodgy thing where you're
Yes.
not giving them a location. So if they stop you and ask you what's up, like you don't have a great status right now.
I don't have a great status.
Okay, cool.
And of course, it was a mistake for me to be doing that dodgy thing. Like, just do what the government tells you to do in those countries within reason.
Yeah,
It sucks,
yeah.
but it's like paying taxes. You just do it. You suck it up.
Just do it. You spend a night in jail and you deal with it.
Yeah, you just hang out with some gypsy prostitutes, man.
Exactly.
Roma
You got a
prostitutes.
story.
Excuse me.
It's one day in your life. Yeah.
Exactly. So these guys, finally, they stopped me. They stopped my friend. My friend is a Serbian guy, but he lives in Italy. He has he used to have all these organized crime connections, but then his family sort of fell out of favor with the current regime after Slobodan Milosevic, ended or whatever, and he had to move. So, you're hanging out with these kind of dodgy folks, but that's what Serbia was kind of like for me back then. I don't know. I was just hanging out with those kind of people. They weren't bad people. It's just that like a lot of people had stories and history like that. Like my boss, when I was an English teacher, she was like she had spent time making like IEDs or something like that to blow up UN jeeps in Kosovo. And she would tell us about that kind of thing. And she's like, "You're the only American I haven't tried to kill. Ha ha ha." And I'm like, funny.
What a laugh. Cool. You want to grab lunch? Or
Yeah. What we did, she was like she was like my second mom, super nice. And she'd say all these nasty things about Americans. She's like, "But I don't mean you. You know that, right?" Yeah. And I'm like, kinda, but I'm getting sick of hearing about it,
Great cast of characters.
Great cast of characters, yeah. So these guys decide to mess with us. And then I don't know if they're radioing it in or calling it in or anything like that. I don't even think they could do that. But they basically decide that my friend and I are going to be taken in. And they won't let us they won't let us go. And they're taking our phones and they're taking our personal belongings and stuff like that. And again, I should not have given up these things because these guys are almost not real cops. I should have just sort of been like, no. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say, 2020 hindsight. And then they're like, get in the car, get in the car, get in the car. Well, they're saying get on the car, get on the car, get on the car. And I'm like, okay. And at this point, I didn't tell them that I spoke Serbian.
Are you trying to figure out if they're asking you to just climb on top of their car? Or
well, wait for it. So okay. I'm thinking, okay, and I try to open the back door. And I notice in the back, there's a gun and a bag of Doritos, which I just remember this bag of Doritos. And I thought like, oh, okay, they have Doritos and a gun on the seat in the car. So I thought if I get back here and I need to escape or something, I literally am armed. So I was trying to figure out a way to see if I could sit on top of the gun so that they couldn't see that I had it. And then I would have to see, is it loaded? Is there one in the chamber? Is the safety on? What kind of gun is it? And also not just get my ass shot like by holding it and not be planning to use it. So those things were going through my head, but I couldn't open the door. And I'm like, why, what's going on? And he said, no, get on the car. No room in the foreigners in the car. And I was like, oh, you're not just misusing a pronoun or not a pronoun, what are the, like, in, on, above?
Preposition.
Preposition. Preposition.
Anything you can do to a creepy foreign government vehicle, that's a preposition.
That's a preposition.
On,
okay.
Under, by,
yes.
around.
Preposition. I thought he was misusing a preposition, because prepositions are really difficult in foreign languages, because you say, like, get on board, but other languages will say get in or get through. Like, you just, they change. They're totally nonsensical. These guys are saying get on the car. And I thought, oh, they must mean in the car, right? Like getting on the plane. No, I'm going to get in the plane. Right. Evel Knievel's going to get on the plane. I think that's a George Carlin thing, right? So I'm trying to get in. I can't get in. He goes, no room for foreigners in the car. No room for foreigners. And I'm like, okay, because these guys like hate Americans. They were talking about how they're going to beat up an American. We bombed them. I'm like, yeah, you have a real sophisticated and nuanced outlook at foreign relations, buddy. I was probably 11 when that was happening, but cool. So what I realized he meant was, you have to stand on the running board, which is that little thing between the tires where you step on it to get into a vehicle. Right. Step on the running board and hold on to the sunroof, which was open. Oh,
my God. Yeah. Okay.
And again, it was a very muddy, off-road, no real streets island where this Turkish fortress was. So they were going very slowly, and it just didn't matter. Because I thought, okay, I can get on the side of this, and they can go like maximum 5 to 7 miles an hour, so I can just jump off and I'm gone. Well, they were like, they got out, they robbed a popcorn vendor and a beer vendor. They just took the guy's stuff, threw it in the car, cracked open beers, and handed us beers. And I thought, oh, okay, they're just messing around now. Like, we're drinking beers, we're eating popcorn, like we're clowning. Like, these guys are just like bored.
They wanted a couple friends for the night. Like, you're not in danger yet. They're just messing around and they wanted company. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Not yet.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. So far, this is actually sounding kind of weirdly fun.
It was exciting, but it was also scary because you don't know what's gonna happen. But I even told my friend, because over the top of the Mitsubishi, whatever it was, car, I look at him and I go, so far, it's a great story, but we have to keep our wits about us and be really careful. And he's like, I don't know he goes, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm listening. And I go, yeah. And I go, maybe don't mention that you speak Serbian too. And he's like, I know, you either. So we're not letting on that we spoke Serbian, which, by the way, I guess before I forget, that's one of the major lessons is anytime you have an advantage in a situation like this, never let the other side know what it is, because then they can try and mitigate what that is. Right. Smart. So like these guys weren't trying to hide what they were saying because they thought these foreigners don't speak Serbian. And Jordan doesn't speak, this guy, Jordan, he doesn't speak Serbian. So you don't want them to know that I do, because, I thought like, oh, what if I impress them with my language knowledge and then they know I don't hate Serbia and that I live here? And I was like, no.
Right.
Right now I'm going to hold that close to the vest, because they're like, yeah, let's go for a drink with these guys and then we'll let them go. And then they were calling people on my cell phone that were in the saved numbers, and they were like, hey, we have your friends. And the people were like, what? And they're like, don't worry. We're just going to have a drink and then let them go. And then I was like, okay, cool. We're fine. Well, as we're getting on the street now, I'm like, oh crap, we better be careful. Like, we're on the road now driving, and we have beer in one hand and we're holding on with another. And there's like motorbikers passing us, and they're like, yeah, because we're drinking, hanging out the side of a car. There's a bus behind us that's like honking, and like the people are laughing, and the bus driver's like rolling his eyes. I mean, it's just, silly stuff like that, because we look like we're just clowning it up.
Right.
And then we get into a neighborhood, and the guys go, what should we do? And then the other guy goes, yeah, I don't know. Well, you know what? Screw these guys. Let's just throw them in the river or something. I'm sick of this. I don't want to deal with this. Do you think think there's going to be any problems? And the other guy's like, nah, just put a tire around him and throw him over the bridge or something like that.
Whoa.
And then I was like, whoa, that took a crazy turn. Like, nothing even happened. They just got bored of us or something. Or they were like, they just decided to like be violent. I think they were on meth.
On drugs. I was about to say that. They sound like they're on drugs. Yeah.
They were very, very, very weird. And they would turn on a dime. They'd go from laughing to like, they like would stab my friend with these sharp objects later on, and they would laugh about it. And then they would put the blood off on a tissue and hold it up and go, ah, and like yell. They were just high as hell.
That sounds like meth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kept saying, do you have any drugs? And we were like, no. And then I remember them turning to each other and going, too bad. Too bad
Oh,
they don't have anything.
there you go.
Yeah. So I think they were like looking for us to have something that they could party with as well. And these guys were really, they'd been up all night. Their eyes were bloodshot red. Like I really think it's straight out of meth. It's a very methed up situation.
Definitely.
And so finally we're in this neighborhood. We're getting sort of stopped. Here's where I knew things were really bad. This is before they said they were going to put us in a tire and throw us over a bridge. That would have been a good clue. But before that happened, one of the things that they'd said was, they kept threatening us. And we saw, I almost forgot. We passed traffic police. And in Europe, traffic police have these like signs they hold up that say like slow and they can signal you to pull over. And they're just on the side of the road wearing those high vis vests. And we passed these cops in a car and they yelled like, "What are you doing?" Because we're hanging out of the car drinking. The cops get in the car, turn on the lights and start chasing us. And these guys in their government car slow down a little bit, reach out the window and just wave these guys off. And they stop, turn off their lights and turn around.
Oh man.
And I go,
that's not
oh,
good.
damn.
Yeah.
Like they could tell just from the car that we were not only not stopping, but that these guys could just do whatever they wanted. And they were like, screw it.
Wow.
Like imagine hanging outside a car with a beer and a cop chases you. And then the driver just goes, "Nope, not dealing with you." And they're like, okay, guess that settles it.
Fair enough. On my way.
So I knew these guys were above the law, right? We didn't even stop. They just sort of slowed down so they could roll the window and be like, "Nah, screw off," to the traffic cops. That was scary. So I turned to my buddy and I go, "Man, we're in for it. That's not a good sign." Because we thought, oh, good, the cops are going to pull us over and we'll be like, "Dude, these guys are bugging us." And if they're like, "Well, we don't believe you," we'll be like, "Please just take us to the police station then. Arrest us.
Yeah.
Get us away from these psychos." That didn't happen. So we end up going into this like house that was, and again, never go to the secondary location. Should have thought of that. But again, these are cops, right? So I didn't know exactly what was going on. That was a little bit of a problem. Had these been regular people, it never would have happened this far. But these were state security officers, so you don't think you can do anything.
That makes sense. I would have done the same thing. I'm not about to run from these guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So we end up at this house, and the house had a bar in it. And I remember there was a bartender, and it was really early in the morning, which is really weird. And the guy's like, "What?" And he opens up these little, like, they're banging on, you know how, like, some buildings have those metal shutters in front of the windows when they're closed, that they close at night, and they're like metal protective things for the front glass. They banged on that. This guy opens it up and then lets us in. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And they said something to him in Serbian that I don't remember, probably didn't understand. And the guy looks at us, and he looks kind of normal. He's a really big guy. He looks kind of normal, and he goes, "Don't worry. I think you're going to be okay." And I went, "Okay," because he could tell we were scared shitless at this point. And he's being really cool, and he's being really nice. And then these two idiot cops go, "Bring us water and keep bringing them rakia," which is like this homemade shlivovica, like homemade liquor that's really strong, like schnapps. And they were like, "Well, let's have a drinking contest." And I was like, "Okay, they're going to drink me under the table." And I go, "Can I have a bottle of water too?" And the guy goes, "Glass of water?" I go, "Do you have a bottle? Can I have a bottle?" And I pointed to the bottle. He gave me the bottle of water. I slammed about, 75% of it to hopefully slow down alcohol absorption. Not sure if it even works, but it's probably better than an empty stomach. And then every time I would take a shot, I would, quote unquote, chase it with water, but I would spit a bunch of it into the bottle.
Oh,
so I was diluting the alcohol with what was left of the water.
Right.
In the bottle. And I ended up going to the bathroom with the bottle, dumping it out and filling it up again in the sink.
Super smart.
Yeah. Well, I figured I can't be passed out drunk because then I'm defenseless.
Well, what are you going to do then? Yeah, exactly.
Right. My friend is not, I have no way to tell my friend to do the same thing. And I have no way of getting my phone. I have nothing I can do with this guy at all. So he's getting wasted, even though he knows what's going on because we understood the Serbian when they told the bartender. The bartender finally goes, "Enough of this. I'm not serving you guys anymore." And he left. And I was like, oh, man, we're so screwed now. These guys get even more angry. I don't know what happens, but they get even more angry, and they bring us down into like the basement area. And at this point, I'm like, we're trapped in this place. And I don't know how to get out at all. So they take us in the back, And my friend is like basically unconscious. I'm like, I can't leave him here by making a run for it and jumping through a window or anything like that, right? I'm stuck.
Yeah.
So they take us in the back, and the guys are now, one of the guys is kind of being cool to me because we're just talking about food and about like Serbian girls and like, oh, America sucks. We bombed you. I don't understand why. Like I love Europe. I love Serbia. I love sarma, which is like this food, right? Talking about that. My friend is a bad drunk, and he's like belligerent and argumentative. And I'm like, oh, this is going so poorly. So they take us to separate rooms. I now hear my friend is getting his ass beat like hard.
Oh God, that's dark.
And I'm talking to this guy and trying to keep him chill and calm, which is now is a great time to mention. If you're listening to us live on the Stereo app, go grab it from, or if you're not, go grab it from the App Store. Stereo, we'll link it in the show notes, iOS or Android. Anyway, so my friend's getting his ass beat by by a renegade Serbian state security officer, and I'm in the back talking and trying to keep the guy calm. So what I was doing was staying as calm as possible. Not, again, too calm that I'm like, everything's going to be fine, not delusionally so, but I'm a fan of the line of thinking that in a stressful situation, whoever thinks the clearest wins. And so I'm chatting, I'm trying to control the frame of the conversation. So for these cops, I could tell they're getting carried away with everything. They're starting to fight with each other. They're yelling. I'm keeping my guy calm because I'm staying super chill. So I'm essentially controlling the conversation. And remember, I'm talking to him in English, and I'm making him repeat himself, and I'm trying to wear him down emotionally and wear him down, I guess, intellectually, so that he gets tired, because I figure this guy is probably coming down from whatever drugs he's been on. And he's probably thinking really hard, trying to use English that's really bad. And I'm telling him I don't understand any Serbian. So he's basically, he's jumping through my hoops, right? And so he'd be like, I'm going to beat you up. You bombed us. And I'd be like, it's weird we met like this, huh? We could have had a drink together. Where's the best restaurant in town? And he'd get mad, and then he'd come back and he'd be like, I'm tired. And then he'd start telling me about his favorite food. And I just realized he's exhausted. He's beat. He's on a come down, like I said, from the drugs and the alcohol. And I just basically made the bet that I had more energy than he did. And I had a caffeine tablet from the night before, because we were staying up all night listening to EDM dance music at this festival. So I popped one of the caffeine pills in the morning as soon as I saw that things were going downhill, because I was like, oh, I'm going to go to bed after this. As soon as we ended up at like the safe house area, I was like, I'm popping this because I need my wits about me.
Yeah.
So I was sharp, and I knew I had probably 6 hours of caffeine pill or whatever, and these guys were tired. So good for me. And at this point, my friend's getting beat up. He's like really not doing well. I can't see him, but I can hear it. And I'm humanizing myself to the captors. I'm saying things like, look, man, I had nothing to do with the bombing of your country. I was 12 when that happened. That was a lie. I think I was really probably like 17 or 18.
Yeah, you're a little older, if I'm doing the math correctly.
But I wanted them to imagine a 12-year-old kid in their head rather than like a military-aged male.
Totally, yeah.
Who's sitting in front of them. And I told them one of the reasons we rushed away from the police car, we were worried about the girls we were with because, we've heard that like some guys can be aggressive. I'm basically making it about other and sort of trying to put us on the same team. I'm using psychology as much as I can at this point with this dumb as opposed, drunk, methed out cop. And again, these aren't regular cops. They're kind of like FBI types.
Right.
I guess another legend. So humanize yourself to your captors, control the situation, speak foreign languages. That's a huge asset, right? I spoke Serbian, so I could understand what they were saying. Game-changing advantage. You never know when the language you speak is going to suddenly become a life-saving asset. And I think I said this before, Gabe, right? Keep information close to the vest and acknowledge that your captors may not even have a plan and exploit weaknesses in that. So if it's a planned kidnapping, it may matter a little, right? If it's a planned kidnapping, they probably have much better logistics in place. They've got a place where they plan on taking you. They've got an idea of what they're going to do with you. In a spur-of-the-moment type of abduction, which is more rare, I would imagine, if you're dealing with people with no plan, this becomes very important because you have a massive, massive advantage if there's no plan. They probably just brought us here on a whim at this house, what we were at, right? They didn't have restraints. They probably don't have any security in place. They had restraints, but they didn't have proper restraints, which was great because that plays later on. They're constantly bickering with one another. So I was looking for opportunities in those cracks. And there's a point where you can decide if you've been defeated and just have to wait for rescue. And there's also, of course, the idea that you can outlast your captors. So you can also find holes in the plan. You can figure out how to take advantage of them. These guys had no clue what they were doing. That was the beginning of my opportunity. We can just confuse them and we can run out their plan and then eventually look for opportunities to escape. Right. Unfortunately, my friend was getting his ass kicked, so I knew he was going to be in a worse condition, which is not good.
So rough. Yeah, that's scary. So he's in the other room, you're in the other room, and are you making progress with this guy? Like, what's happening?
So I'm keeping him calm, and eventually the other guy gets sick of beating up my friend, I think. And I was like, look, man, I'd love to keep talking, but I feel sick. And he's like, oh. And I was like, I need water. And he goes, oh, let me get you some water. I was like, can you go get me something to drink? I feel really, really sick. And I basically stopped cooperating. I was like, I feel really sick. And so he goes, and I thought he was either going to go get me some water from the sink upstairs or check with the other guy or something. They ended up getting in their car and leaving. And I don't know what the deal was, but they ended up leaving. And I don't know if they went to go get water or if they just gave up on us or what. And I ran into the room where my friend was. He was out of it. And they had injected him with something also, which really sucks.
So scary. Yeah.
Yeah. He had an injection mark on his arm.
Oh, God.
And from hopefully not a dirty needle. So he had to go to the hospital and get like blood panels done and stuff like toxicology. It turned out they gave him heroin.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I grab my friend. We get out one of the windows of this bar house thing. It's like a big window, like a veranda almost. And we run to this restaurant, which like we're in like a random place. We like run and run and run. We go to this restaurant area. And the waitress, I knew we looked bad because the waitress came up to us and goes, hi, can I help you? And like mid-sentence, she turns around.
Oh,
and
God.
Me and my friends sit down in the outdoor chairs. And then suddenly the police come and we're like, what? And they were like, get out of here, you dumb junkies. And I was like, oh, hi. So we got attacked by the police. And they were like, what? None of this makes any sense. You're just a junkie. You're a stupid junkie. You come here to do drugs. And I was like, no, we got attacked by the cops. And what was interesting was I'm seated in the back of the police car. The traffic cops call the militia or whatever, which are like the more armed, like heavily armed cops, like the more serious cops. Those guys were in the back of the car. The guys calling me stupid junkies, stupid idiots, blah, blah, blah. They didn't believe it. They called the ambulance for us. My friend, the ambulance driver's like, I want to help you, but you have to tell me what drugs you were doing. And I was like, I didn't do anything. They injected my friend with something. And he goes, they? Who's they? I was like, the cops. And he was like, you guys are idiots. I can't help you if you're going to lie to me. So then we end up in the back. I am in the back of the police car with this younger cop. And I go, the police beat me up. He goes, you liar, you stupid junkie. This didn't happen. I go, no, it was the cops. He goes, really? We did this to you? I go, no, it was the guys in the black Mitsubishi Jeep. And he stops and goes, oh, man, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm really, really sorry. This is a cop, like a young cop, who's calling me a stupid junkie.
He recognized who that must have been.
So he knew right away that I wasn't lying, because what foreigner comes and says I got beat up by the police and then names the exact make and model of a car where the sort of terror squad cops
are. He knows of these people, whoever they are.
And he knows. And what I found out later from Serbian friends was these guys don't just pick foreigners. They go after Serbian men and women all the time. They steal people's stuff. They beat people's ass in the road. They shoot people. They do all kinds of horrible stuff. So these are not like, they're like secret police, They're like not so secret police. And the ranks that these guys are drawn from are not always, but at least during that time in the 90s and a little bit later, these are the guys these guys were from Bosnia. They had a Bosnian accent. They were Bosnian Serbs. So during the Civil War, in all likelihood, these guys were in a Serbian militia, which, killed a bunch of Croatian old people or whatever, or Bosniak Muslims. And then when they lost that civil war, or their area where the civil war was, maybe it got taken over by Bosniaks or Croats, wherever they lived in Bosnia, they were relocated to Belgrade. And since they were in the militia, they needed a job, and they needed a job where they couldn't be prosecuted for crimes committed against other people that they'd committed when they were during the Civil War. So what the geniuses in the Serbian government did at that time was they made these guys policemen at the state security level, which I think gives them immunity from prosecution.
Oh my God.
So they made a bunch of PTSD, war crime damage, war criminal damaged militia guys from the middle of nowhere, country town, Bosnia. They brought them to the big city and they said, here's a regular salary and unlimited authority to screw with whoever you want and absolutely no future prospects whatsoever. Have at it. So these guys just run around terrorizing the local population, essentially.
Terrifying. Imagine being policed by those guys every single day.
Yeah.
That's rough.
And I found all this out 2020 hindsight, of course, because one of my students, when I was an English teacher, occasional students, he was like a UN delegate for Serbia in the Kosovo War Crimes Tribunal. And I called him and I was like, dude, can you do anything about this? Because the guys who we escaped from, they knew who we were and they were still threatening us after we escaped.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, can you do something about this? And he's like, I can't even touch these guys. And he's like a UN delegate, he's like he works directly with like the foreign minister of Serbia.
That's wild.
So he couldn't do anything about it. And that's what really freaked me out, because these guys they would call like friends of ours because they had the phone numbers still. And they would be like, hey, where's Jordan? I want to pay him a visit, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so what we did to take care of the situation, we went to the U.S. embassy. They were so useless. They said, hey, we can't do anything about this. It's really hard to get anything done in Serbia already, so we're not going to make a big deal about it. They were really, really useless. And I have to say, to this day, I'm extremely disappointed. But I found out the hard way that the U.S. embassy staff, they don't give a shit about people in the country. They don't give a shit about Americans who are there. No, they're just trying to get their stupid stuff done, their diplomatic stuff done. Later on, when the media they told us don't go to the media. The media started writing stories about this, saying like we were picking fights with these guys, or like we'd attacked women and the cops were rescuing the women. Just bullcrap like that.
You mean local media started writing
local
about
media,
it?
Serbian media.
They were like, oh, over the weekend this happened with these guys. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Do you have those stories?
What's that?
Were they on the internet?
No, I mean, they were on one. It was front page news because I was getting of their newspaper Politica, because people were calling me. It must have been on the internet, because I got a call from my friend in Australia who was Serbian, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm reading Politica dot Serbia, whatever Serbian website." I wish I still had the story.
Oh man, that would be cool.
It would be cool. And he's like, "Are you okay? Your name is in the newspaper on the front page." And I was like, "Oh God." And he's like, "Yeah, it sounds like the police had a run-in with you and all this stuff." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So yeah, the U.S. diplomatic staff didn't care at all. They expressed some sympathy, but then later on, they colluded with Serbian media and said, "We're just going to say that you lied about this." And when I confronted them, they said, "Dude, you're alive. We don't want our jobs to get any harder. So just whatever we say with the media, just ignore it, man. Just be grateful you're alive." That's what the consular security officer said to me. And I said, "I hope that this happens to you and nobody gives a shit." And he was like, "Well, fuck you then, buddy." Like he was just a dickhead, like a total dickhead. Yeah. What we ended up doing, and I said, "I'm taking this into my own hands, because if you guys can't help me be safe, then I have to figure this out myself." And I was thinking about leaving, but my friend who had the organized crime connections and lived in Italy, he was like, "No, screw this. There's only one way to get respect. And like, these guys are going to come after you." And he also told me, "Look, these guys, if they want to mess with you, they're going to come after you in the United States too, because there's tons of Serbian gangsters and stuff in the United States. And what are they doing? They're calling people. They're not going to like stop calling, So he goes, we need to do he goes, the only safe way to do this is to do this in the Serbian way." And I was like, "Okay, I'll trust your judgment." I shouldn't have done that, but luckily nothing bad happened. So
also,
we went to
the most Serbian sentence I've ever heard in my life.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. It's just like some Grand Theft Auto.
Is to do this the
Serbian way. Yeah. So we go to the Italian embassy. Carabinieri guy's really surprised, really upset, says, "I can't do anything about this." Serbian police and law enforcement never cares when we report crimes against Italian citizens, because my friend had Italian citizenship and Serbian
Same
citizenship.
story.
What's that?
Same story.
Same story, but
yeah.
less of an a-hole. Like the American guy was a straight up just dick about it. Like, and the Italian guy expressed sympathy and got us some coffee. And then here's the most Italian thing ever. The Carabinieri goes, "You should tell the gardener." And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but okay. And my friend's translating because I don't speak Italian. Tell the gardener, tell the gardener. I go, what do you mean tell the gardener? Tell the gardener. What are you talking about? Kept saying tell the gardener. So then finally Carabinieri guy goes, go across the street to the Italian coffee shop. It's run by the embassy. It's where the embassy staff go to get coffee. It's the best coffee around, and I'll send over the gardener. And I'm like, all right. So I go and sit down, and I have coffee, and my friend orders coffee, and he's so upset. And this super tall, very white guy comes out of the embassy and sits down, and he's so calm and so nice and so caring and so cool. And I'm like, what do you do? And he goes, I'm the gardener. And I'm like, why the fuck is anybody, why are you sending the gardener? What is anybody going to do? What's this gardener guy going to do? And he goes, here's what I'm going to do. Do you guys have 1,200 euros? And I was like, yeah, I mean, why? And he goes, I need to bring some friends with me. And we're going to take care of this and make sure that it's fine. And you should come so that you can sleep at night, because then you'll see that it's fine. I'm like, okay. So this guy gets these like super gangster looking like thuggy guys who I think were Albanian, finds these guys, calls us at like 10 p.m., has us drive 90 minutes out to where they are. And he's got these guys, and they are more scared than anyone ever been scared in their whole life.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, what do you want to do? And I go, I want to throw them off a bridge with a tire around it, like they said they were going to do to us. And the guys were like, no, 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 no. And I was like, maybe we should let him live. What do you think? And then the guy's like, the gardener goes, I don't know. It's up to you. What do you Jordan says we have to kill you. Basically, he's saying this in Serbian with an Italian accent to these guys. And they're like, no, 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 we're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're never going to do this again. You know, all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I still kind of want to throw you off that bridge. You know, you were going to do this to us. And the guys were like so scared that I felt bad for them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, are you, you know, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to lose your number. I'm sorry. I deleted my number out of their phones myself. And then I thought better of it, and I threw their phones into the river.
Nice.
And I said, let them walk home while they're still restrained. Because we're in the middle of like, I don't know, some town. I said, and it's kind of cold, if I recall correctly, like at night. And I was just like, let them walk home while their hands are tied up, you know, like I don't give a crap. So the gardener and these Albanian dudes or whatever, they didn't say anything. So they looked sort of Albanian. There's a lot of like dark featured folks there. So I just assumed that maybe they were Italian. And then we drove back to Belgrade. And then I left because I was like, I just want to be damn sure. But my friend lived there for a while. And he's like, we never heard from those guys ever again.
Wow. I'm surprised that he stayed, actually.
He lived there.
He lived there, okay.
So, and he had a lot of organized crime connections.
I was going to say, he knows the gardener. If you know the gardener.
So the thing that I don't understand to this day is the gardener a nickname, or is the gardener like their slang term for their Italian state spy agency that the guy was from, or is the gardener just like a mafioso that knew some mafia guys, and he just happens to be on the payroll of the embassy as the gardener? But obviously where was he gardening? The embassy is in the middle of Belgrade. It's a city. There's no lawn.
I mean, there's no lawn, and I mean, you didn't walk up to this guy holding some gardening shears. You know what I mean?
No.
I think that's a role.
And don't you hire a local landscaper to take care of the embassy flowers? Like, why do you need your own gardener? So the whole thing made no sense.
They didn't fly out the greatest gardening artiste in Milan.
So I'm like, I think it's just a guy whose job it is to sort of like take care of business that's off the books.
To trim the hedges.
Yeah. Yes, to trim the hedges, if you will.
Exactly.
And they call him the gardener, and he probably gets paid a small salary from the embassy, but he took our 1,200 euros, and he probably like paid these, you know, thug dudes 100 euros and pocketed 1,000, and then like took care of business. And we had that guy's phone number, and he's like, if there are any problems, call me. I'm the gardener. And I remember being like, what happened?
Wouldn't it be funny if you called them and you're like, "Hey, do you mow lawns
Do you
or?"
still do gardening?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because no. He's like, "Yeah, I could help." No. Literally, I just moved into a really nice house and
Yeah.
the lawn needs a little work.
Yeah. You're going to end up with like some Albanian guys coming over with facial scars and giant, muscles who are going to cut your lawn
Yeah.
with,
Oh my God,
yeah.
dude.
So,
That's wild.
it's terrifying. Lots of weird stuff happen in Serbia.
Did
I
you go
love
back to
Serbia.
Serbia? You love Serbia. I know you told me that a lot. Did you go back after that trip?
I did go back again only after having my friend worked for a Japanese tobacco company, and they had a security guy who was former state, like a spy in Serbia. And I go, can you have him look in their systems and see if I have any problems? And the guy did, and for $100 he gave like a full check, and I'm nowhere to be found in any computers.
Wow. Well, I gotta say, you made it out of these two stories pretty well.
Yeah.
Unscathed. You're luckier than some other people I know in those situations.
Sure.
But that's extraordinary. That is truly extraordinary. Do you feel like you're a different person because you went through those experiences?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. After the Mexico one, I was like, wow, that was really scary. Stuff happens. I'm fine. I'm great. But then after the Serbia one, I started to be like, I bet that I can die really easily, and that everyone thinks they're in like immortal at age 24. Like I had this, the day I went to that festival, I was like, nothing can stop me. I'm invincible. Stay up all night drinking, the young people stuff. After that, I was like, my body can get holes put in it and the holes don't heal up, and I can get shot and killed, and I can get thrown into a river and die.
Wow.
It like you felt your mortality at that level. I felt my mortality at that level so strongly that I realized that was like the death of my innocence when it comes to, I'm going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. I was like, there's a lot of situations that don't end up fine.
Yeah.
And this is one of those that could have been, it was so close to not being fine.
Could have gone such a different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. You must feel grateful on so many levels. I mean, just to come out of something like that with a good story and not something worse, or not at all.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
You're the one who brought me to North Korea, actually, the first time. Did any of these stories make you second guess going to North Korea?
Yeah. The first time I went to North Korea, I was like, how bad can it be? It's probably going to be fine. Bear in mind, there were no Westerners had been held or anything. But now people, since that show aired, the North Korea episode, people are like, I want to go. I have a Portuguese passport. Maybe I should go. And I'm like, go ahead. A lot of people go and it's uneventful, but I don't think I can go again. Until things really open up and Kim Jong-un is no longer like in charge running things.
Right.
Because I stopped going in 2016, 2015? When did we stop going?
14, 15, 16?
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I stopped going because I was like, hey, this is getting too heavy duty. People are getting caught here and stopped here and arrested here. And so now I'm much more careful because now I have a kid, so it's a totally different story. But even before I'd met Jen, where I still theoretically should have been in my I'm invincible phase of life, this Serbia story made damn sure that I was no longer thinking like that.
Right. I don't know what to say, man. Those are crazy stories. If I heard that, I would be like, you hired the best writing team. This is going to be a great show.
Yeah, hire a good writing team.
I love
turn it into a movie.
The details are incredible, though. Like the gardener and the
gardener.
The gardener.
I don't
and
get why. Yeah. That I remember because it was so weird.
And the Mitsubishi and man, like it's so vivid. It's just wild.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more to the story, but none of it's as interesting. Like the regular cops came and interviewed us, and then they were like, hey, we can't do anything because these guys are state security officers. It's not like we never went to the cops,
right?
After that. It's just that they were like, this is fruitless.
Right.
There's nothing we can do about this.
Well, that's what's wild is like you come from a country like the States, you think things are going to work the way they should. Systems are going to be in place for stuff like this. I can rely on custom and habit and like just basic decency, and then you get to a place like that where it's truly lawless on so many levels, and you get caught up with the people who are supposed to be protecting you are messing with you, and it's like, what do you do? Then it's really all on you and a big dose of luck, I guess, to get out of that situation okay, which is wild. And I'm glad you did, because I don't know, we wouldn't have been friends if you
That's right. I would have been.
So that's sad.
That's right. That's true. You know what? It's interesting here is I told this story a few times, probably 10 or more than 10 years ago, you know, right when it happened in 2004, I told a few people, and I remember especially Serbian people in America would be like, this is BS, whatever, I don't believe it. These are Serbian Americans. But whenever I met, there were a couple people in law school who were Serbian from Serbia. And when I told them, they instantly were like, oh yeah, that happens.
Oh,
So I thought that was interesting because, you know, I'll meet somebody in Chicago who's like a second generation Serb and they're like, yeah, BS. I love Serbia. Everybody's nice and friendly. It's an awesome place. And I'm like, I don't disagree with that. But when you meet an actual Serbian who lived in Serbia, they're like, dude, that happens all the time, especially during the Civil War, when Bosnia and Croatia and Serbia, the breakup of Yugoslavia, crazy stuff like that happened all the time.
Wow.
Because there was just, and under Slobodan Milosevic,
yeah,
I mean, dude, of course that stuff happened.
Yeah, it's not going to work properly. And people are just, I mean, also, the thing about corruption is that there's so many layers to it, right? Like, there's the culture of the country in which it happens. There's the fact that they don't pay police well. There's the fact that you mentioned in this country in particular, they're hiring the worst people to be the people who are supposed to be protecting everybody, which is insane. I mean, like, once you get 3 or 4 of those problems together, it's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
How is it going to work? Anyway, that's craziness.
So crazy. Look, I love doing this one. Hopefully we do more of these live shows because I am enjoying them. They're in the Stereo app. You should check out the Stereo app if you're interested in doing something like that. We'll link to it in the show notes. Look, links to anything we mentioned, we'll link into the show notes as well at jordanharbinger.com. Worksheets for the episode are in the show notes, transcripts in the show notes. I'm at Jordan Harbinger on both Twitter and Instagram, or hit me on LinkedIn. You can find Gabriel at Gabe Mizrahi on Twitter or at Gabriel Mizrahi on Instagram. I'm teaching you how to connect with great people and manage relationships using systems and tiny habits over at our 6-minute networking course that's free over at jordanharbinger.com/course. Dig the well before you get thirsty. You got to build relationships before you need them. This show is created in association with Podcast One. My amazing team is Jen Harbinger, Jay Sanderson, Robert Fogarty, Ian Baird, Millie Ocampo, Josh Ballard, and Gabriel Mizrahi. Remember, we rise by lifting others. The fee for this show is that you share it with friends when you find something useful or interesting. If you know somebody who's interested in, I don't know, weird kidnapping stories or just stories in general, please do share this with them. Hopefully you find something great in every episode of the show. So please share the show with those you care about. In the meantime, do your best to apply what you hear on the show so you can live what you listen. I hope you never have to apply what you learned today, though. I got to caveat that, right? I hope you never need any of this. But if you do apply what you hear on the show, especially in the other episodes, I would love that. So live what you listen, and we'll see you next time. Hope you all enjoyed that. You can find me at the Jordan Harbinger Show podcast feed. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just look for the Jordan Harbinger Show. Hope you all enjoyed that. Click here for an interview with Timothy Ballard, who travels around the world rescuing trafficked children. And click here for an interview with Masab Hassan, the Green Prince of Hamas and Israel's top informant inside that organization. Of course, click here to subscribe to the channel.